My name is Jennifer Greer. I'm with the North Jeffco Dems, and I want to welcome you here tonight. I'm working in collaboration with several Democratic clubs. They're not affiliated with the Democratic Party, but clubs, which are just citizens groups throughout the county. And first is North Jeffco Dems. We're kind of based in Gardendale, but we float across the top of the county from between here and Irondale and Leeds. And if you're from North Jeffco Dems, can you raise your hand? All right, great. And then also Democratic Citizens of Trustville, Shellstone Hamilton, and Brian Hub. And then we're also working tonight with Vestavia Democrats, Jim and Brenda Toomey, and Hoover Dems. Anybody here from Hoover Dems? Bravo. So anyways, if you want change, you're not alone. You're not alone. So thank you for coming tonight.
About Hive.
Pardon me?
Forgot about Hive.
Hive, how could I forget about Hive? Thank you. Hive, Alabama, and MAD Make a Difference. Two women's led group that are based here in Homewood is Hive, Alabama. Megan, can you raise your hand? Megan Cheek, is Kristen here? And Shannon Haddock, who is a co-leader of mine with MAD Make a Difference, and these are two women's-based activist groups that are technically nonpartisan. So anyways, this is a collaborative effort, and thank you all for helping us put this on. And thank you to the candidates for being here tonight, too. I think this is one of the races to watch, and we're really excited about it. So just another word about who we are. Some of us are lifelong Democrats, Yellow Dog Democrats. Some of us are independents. Some of us are seekers, Dem curious. Some of us are unhappy or recovering Republicans. So we are an interesting group and a big tent, but we all unite about one thing. We are not happy with the status quo in Alabama. We are not happy with what's happening in America, and we want change, and we will be voting in the Democratic primary in May 19, because that is the only primary that's going to affect change in Alabama. The other primary is same old. So if you want more of what you're getting in Alabama and in Montgomery and Washington, this is probably not the forum for you. But if you want to start voting for change, you want to be voting in the Democratic primary on May 19th. And I think at the end of the evening, you'll see why. So anyways, that's who we are, and that's why we're here. A few reminders. May 4, Monday, May 4 is the last day to register to vote, okay? So, two important things that you need to do: make sure that everybody you know is registered to vote, and pick up one of these cards. It's called the Resist the Purge card. And if y'all want to pass these out if folks haven't gotten, but anyways, the Resist the Purge card, there are some QR codes on here. One, you can register to vote, and the other one, you can check your status, okay? And just a quick story. If you, for some reason, have not voted in the last 2 elections, you may think you're registered and you're not, or you may not be. We were recently at Miles College at an event with a dean, a very influential person, and we started telling her about the active purging that's going on with the Alabama Secretary of State. And lo and behold, she checked her status and she was inactive. So this is something that we have to get used to doing, checking voter status at least twice a year, before the primary and before the general election, and also before the deadline to re-register runs out if you happen to be inactive. So do keep up with that and help us resist the purge. One other thing before, it's just some quick deadlines. May 4th, the deadline to register to vote. May 19th is the primary. Absentee voting has already started in Alabama. There are a whole series of deadlines that involve absentee voting. So just Google Jefferson County, Alabama, and absentee voting, and everything you need to know will pop up about those deadlines.
Jennifer, can I say something about that
Sure.
real quick? I'm just going to stand up. I'm really loud, so I'll use the mic later, I promise. But I went to the Election Commission meeting yesterday. Absentee voting is pitifully low this year. Okay, it's very low in Jefferson County. There's only about 300 absentee ballots in so far. That's compared to more like 1,000 at this point in most elections. So I just want to let everybody know, one of the biggest problems, over half of the mailed in requests for absentee ballots were not properly completed and had to be there. So they're having to make calls to get people to fix their problem. The primary problem is Wess Allen changed the form, and the form is very confusing. People are getting confused. They're not properly checking the boxes. So what we were told yesterday is out of like 560 requests, only about 200 of them were properly made, and therefore a lot of people have not gotten their ballots because they can't get their ballot until they properly request a ballot. So that's been a real problem. So if you are going to vote absentee, please go to the clerk's office and vote absentee in person. I watch what happens to these votes, y'all. 100% of those get counted. The ones that are mailed in, 20% of them are never to the start line. They get thrown into a corner and never counted. So don't mail in an absentee ballot unless you absolutely must. If you need to vote absentee, go to the courthouse and vote there. Sorry for interrupting, Jim.
All right, great, thank you. That's Wayne Rogers, who's currently works for the county sheriff's office and sits on the election commission, so he's got our inside information there. So thank you. So before I introduce the panel, I do want to say just a note about the Calais decision that came down yesterday from the U.S. Supreme Court, because I think it's got some of my friends in clinical depression, okay? And I don't know if you read Robert Hubble, he's a Democratic activist from California, but he had a great piece on it this morning, talking about the Calais decision is a blow. People are calling it one of the worst decisions for democracy in 100 years. But that what Robert Hubble and some of the other activists are telling us is don't panic, stay calm.
That's right.
We don't know the exact number of seats that are in play. We don't want to catastrophize. It would be difficult to gerrymander most districts now because the election has already started. As we said, absentee voting is already going on in Alabama. Mississippi has already had its primary. So even though you may see Louisiana said they're going to stop and redistribute. By and large, this is not going to be a factor. We do not think in the 2026 election. It could be a factor in some elections in 2028. However, I did want to get and just quickly an Alabama update. Wayne, can you also tell
Absolutely.
us about?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do that. So. Everybody probably knows Kay Ivey announced yesterday she does not intend to call a special session of the legislature. It's too late. We are 19 days from the primary, and as Jennifer said, that means we've already had 23 days of absentee voting. So it was way too late to change this. Now, Wess Allen, other folks have made statements saying, oh, we got to redistrict right now, we got to redistrict right now. I do not believe it is practically possible, and I do believe that Kay Ivey is going to prevent it. Kay Ivey is the only person who can call the legislature into session. That's the only way it would happen. And if she says I'm not calling a special session, that session's not going to happen. To follow up on what Jennifer said as well, Chris Christie is one of the best election lawyers I know. And Chris told me last night, he said, Wayne, we don't need to panic over Calais. It applies to Louisiana. Does it apply to Alabama? Alabama's got our own decision from less than 2 years ago with regard to our districts. And we don't know. And believe me, folks, we're going to fight this on a state-by-state, district-by-district, case-by-case basis. Every time Republicans try to redistrict, we're going to fight it. So don't worry about that. It will happen. But Alabama, it appears, is going to remain with two minority opportunity districts, as they call it. District 7 and District 2 will stay exactly as they were for 2024. For our 2026 election, I do not believe... I'll tell you this, I believe if they did try to change it now, like if Kay Ivey listens to Wess Allen and says, okay, I'm calling a special session. Well, first of all, she's got to allow 10 days for everybody to get back to Montgomery. That puts us less than a week before the election by the time everything gets done. And I think an injunction, I think any federal court in the state will grant an injunction and say it's just too late. Because then you can't pass a bill in less than 4 legislative days, which would mean that we'd be right on top of the election. I just don't see any way they can do it. So don't panic, keep fighting.
Okay, great. Okay, so tonight we're here to hear from 4 candidates for the U.S. Senate on the Democratic primary, and we think this is one of the most exciting races to watch. Number one, there's no Republican incumbent. Senator Tommy Tuberville is not running for re-election, and as a senator, he's running for the governor's office. So, and that's another story. That's another story, and we hope to be back perhaps in June with a forum that relates to that. But there is no incumbent, so this is an opportunity. Everybody says it would be a long shot, but we do need to realize that all of the candidates, the Senate candidates in the primary, and whoever wins the GOP primary, are Trump Republicans. They're Trump Republicans, and that we also know that for many reasons, price of gasoline, inflation, housing, foreign wars, ICE, violence against immigrants, including legal immigrants and American citizens, that many people that Trump's polling numbers are in the 30s, okay? And that the Alabama Republicans are aligned with him at the hip. So if ever there was an opportunity for us to win a race, a gubernatorial race, a Senate race, this is our year. This is our year. And also, if there is an opportunity for us to even pick up 10 points, 10 points, and that may not sound like much, but that's an important thing that will help us in 2028, okay? Because that's an important election too. That's an important election too. Historically, statewide elections fall 60% Republican, 40% Democrat. Sounds like a 20-point spread, but it's not really. We just have to pick up 10.5 points to win an election.
Yep.
Okay? And we think we can do that. We think this could be the year on certain races. If they elect their worst and if they nominate their worst and we nominate our best, we can win elections. We did that in 2017 with Doug Jones, and we can do that again. And that's what we're about. We're about turning out, talking to voters who are disaffected, unhappy, and ready for a change, and getting them to vote in the Democratic primary so we make a strong selection. So anyways, tonight I've asked Wayne Rogers, you've already heard from Wayne. Wayne is the de facto nominee for Secretary of State on the Democratic ticket because he has no competition. I just remembered something. Forgive me. We have other candidates in the. Jim Toomey is running for the state legislature. Jim, will you stand up? Brian Huff.
Do it in Homewood.
Yeah,
that's
but
right.
they're both running for judicial county and can't get seats in Jefferson County.
Alan Thomas for House District 50.
Okay, great. I mean, this is leadership. This is leadership. This is what we need. So anyway, back to Wayne. He's our nominee for Secretary of State, and I'm going to let Wayne tell you a little bit more about who he is. But he is moderating for us tonight, and he will introduce the candidates and moderate the panel. But basically, we have Mark Wheeler, Dakarai Larriett, Sweetser, and Everett Wess. And I want to thank them all for coming out because some of them drove great distances, but all of them are super busy people, and we're thrilled to have them. All right, Wayne, take it away.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. I'm going to let these four folks introduce themselves to you. Really, I'm not going to do any more introduction than we've done. I do want to talk to you a little bit about the format. We're going to give each of them up to 5 minutes. They've all said, "Oh, wait, that's too much," but I'm going to give them up to 5 minutes to give an opening statement to you guys. It's not really going to be a debate, but I do have then a specific question prepared for each of them. I've been out on the campaign trail with all 4 of these folks a good bit. I've heard them speak a good bit. I know what they like to talk about, so I have prepared each of them a specific question based on the theme of justice. So that's going to be our theme for my part of the questioning tonight. After we finish with my question for each of the 4, and it's a specific question, and I'll tell you all more about that as we get there, you will then have an opportunity to ask questions. I'm going to make sure you know one thing though. Your time at the microphone is not a time to filibuster, okay? Don't be reading, the yellow pages like they used to do when they filibustered old bills and stuff like that. So keep your question quick. We have an hour and 40 minutes, and if we've taken our full 2 hours, and I want to hear from these folks much more than I hear from anyone else in the room, okay? And y'all want to hear from them more than you want to hear from me. So we drew straws at the beginning of the night, and so we're going to go in the order that we drew. So that means the first person up. And by the way, if this microphone cord does not work and doesn't reach as far as it should, it is Megan Cheek's fault. So, and if it works, everybody pat Megan on the back as she goes out the door tonight, okay? So
get her to do your rock band.
So, all right, so based on the draw, our first person to introduce themselves to you is Everett Wess. There you go. Great. Yes, you. Hey, what you man?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am Attorney Everett Wess, and I am working to be your next United States Senator. I got into this race because I thought about my children who are adults and my grandchildren. I have 2 children and 6 grandchildren. And I looked at the political climate, looked at what's going on in Washington, and I didn't like it. So I thought I'd run for Senate so that I can make a difference so that my grandchildren and my grandchildren's children will have a better political climate than what we are living in today. I am Everett Wess. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Educationally, I have college degrees in music education, computer science and mathematics, an MBA, and a Juris Doctorate degree in law. So I talk about education because when I was coming through school, we had what you call the Pell Grant, the BEOG grant, Basic Educational Opportunity Grant. And I got through a lot of college based on the federal funding that I received from those grants. And as your U.S. Senator, I will make sure that we in the Senate and in Congress work to keep federal funding so young people in today's society can have an opportunity to get a quality education, a quality public education in this country today. I want to make sure that student loans continue, and just make sure that every young person has an opportunity to get a quality public education. I also want to make sure that colleges are funded. During the DOGE cuts, there were cuts to schools like UAB, who is doing vital research, Auburn University, Alabama A&M, Tuskegee University, and Alabama State University. I want to make sure that federal funding is granted and is utilized in the way that Congress intended. Congress holds the purse strings, and I want to make sure that continues to occur. Employment-wise, when I finished my computer science degree, I started out working in Huntsville, Alabama. I've maintained and wrote software for Patriot Missile Systems, and I also wrote and maintained software for NASA payload checkout units up at Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. Then I moved to Birmingham and began working for AT&T. So I worked in computer science technology for about 17 years. So law was my second career. I went back to law school at night, passed the bar the first time, finished in 3 years, and I've been now practicing for 26 years. Within this 26 years, I've worked 8 years as a municipal court judge for the city of Midfield, 5 years as a prosecutor for the city of Midfield, and 5 years as a prosecutor for the city of Irondale. I have been to the 11th Circuit Federal Court and have won decisions on judicial authority. I have gone to federal and state courts and have won decisions on the 4th Amendment, search and seizure, 5th and 14th Amendment, due process. I have gone to court and won on these issues. I'm the only lawyer of this group. And I think that's important, especially when we're looking at ICE and what they're doing and how it affects due process, how it affects search and seizure, how it affects going into people's homes, pulling mothers and fathers away from their children, pulling children away from their parents. As your U.S. Senator, I will stand up, not like what the Senate and Congress are doing right now, and make sure that we function and have co-equal branches of government in the way that the Constitution intended.
1 minute, Everett, 1 minute.
Lastly, let me say that, I'm the candidate that's been here. I've been here in this community. I worked hard in this community. You know who I am. I'm not just coming on the scene. I've worked in voter registration. I've worked in youth development. And I work to make this community better right here in Jefferson County. I live here in Birmingham, Jefferson County, Alabama. So I want to ask each and every one of you to look at our information, compare the candidates, and on May the 19th, vote Everett Wess, the best candidate for U.S. Senate. Thank you so much.
All right. All right, they just sort of naturally sat in the order that they drew. So Kyle Sweetser's next.
That works out. Hey y'all, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today, speaking to all y'all, and hopefully we're going to earn your vote here, hopefully to get your vote. So my name's Kyle Sweetser, and I'm running for United States Senate. I'm a Mobile, Alabama native. I was born and raised here in Alabama. I got a football scholarship to West Point and out of high school. Went up there for a bit, actually got injured my second year. Hurt myself pretty bad, got an honorable discharge, came back down here to Alabama. At the time, the family business, which is what I pretty much was born into, construction, wasn't doing so well. And so I helped turn their business around from the yellow pages to the internet. It was during the recession. And after that, when the Deepwater Horizon blew, I got straight to work. I got after it. I worked as a small boat captain, keeping all the oil off of our beaches, and I think we did a pretty good job compared to other places. In 2016, I got a business license. Started working in the mornings, getting people out of their garages, working on garages, getting people to work. So sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, weekends, Sundays, you name it, any chance that I got, any opportunity to work, I took it. And I'll tell you from that point, I'm a former Republican voter. Oh. And yeah, so going in and out of people's houses though, and seeing how they changed under the MAGA movement absolutely disturbed me. The increase of racism, xenophobia, and sexism when you're in someone's home, typically, and you have people tell you things, and hearing that people couldn't even eat Thanksgiving dinner with each other anymore because of the divisiveness of our political system, spearheaded by Donald Trump and the MAGA movement. In 2018, I got to see steel tariffs and how they actually work. They are regressive taxes. That means they harm lower income Americans the most. And down here in Alabama, we are 49th in income. So we know how bad regressive taxes are with these horrible sales taxes that we have as well. They keep us in poverty. January 6, 2021. That's whenever I became politically involved after that. I started doing everything in my power, just stepped out into the light, using my voice, and through that, I made the right people mad. And so, Kamala Harris invited me to speak at the Democratic National Convention, where I delivered a speech on tariffs. I delivered a speech against Donald Trump and the MAGA movement. And I've worked nationally since 2022, 2023 to try to pull Republicans away from MAGA. So I'm running for United States Senate to rein in the executive office. I want to pass legislation that undoes the Supreme Court ruling that says the president is above the law. This is America. No one should be above the law. I want to reassert congressional authority over tariffs, reining in these tariff taxes that are harming working families that are struggling to get by. I want to pass legislation. If you look at what's happening right now on immigration, it's fiscally irresponsible, it's unconstitutional, and it's downright immoral. We have ICE agents that are getting $50,000 bonuses that's coming out of your pocket. When we have teachers here in the state of Alabama that don't even make that in an entire year. We need to provide in this legislation a pathway to citizenship for these folks that are working hard. They're doing jobs where they can't be replaced. They're a vital part of our society, a vital part of our community. It's only fair.
1 minute to go, pal.
Thank you. The last thing I want to do is I want to push for clean water initiatives, bring money into our state. I want to do things that help our state economically, but also help move us forward with health and safety. You look at Lowndes County, Alabama, where 1 out of every 3 people has a parasite, like we live in a third world country. We should be ashamed of that. We should fight for those communities. And I promise, as your next U.S. Senator, I will fight for those communities. I will fight for you. And more importantly, when we get to November, I am the candidate that has the skill set that's done the work nationally to work to bring Republicans across the line. We need to win every Democrat, every independent, every moderate, but we also have to bring in 200,000 Republican voters, and I'm committed to doing that. Thank you all.
Good evening, and thank you so much, Jennifer, Wayne, Hyde, for this forum. Now, how are you all feeling tonight? Really?
I'm terrified.
I'm tired. SCOTUS yesterday, constant assault on our voting rights, constant assault on our dignity. Have you seen the things that the president posts? I can't even say president. I say pedophile chief. Healthcare. We have a healthcare system that is in shambles, y'all. It is ridiculous. As I travel this state, I see hospitals shut down. I hear about people traveling 90 minutes each way for care. Education. An education system being run by wrestler guys. This is where we are now, Linda McMahon. We deserve so much better. We deserve leaders who know what these issues are and have plans to fix them. But that's not what we have. We have Katie Brett and her husband day trading banking stocks instead of regulating them and protecting us. Tommy Tuberville, well-known day trader. We deserve better. And that is why I'm running for United States Senate. I want to share just a little bit about me, but again, this is about you tonight, and we're so excited to answer your questions. I'm a born and raised Alabamian. I love the state. I want to see us all do better. Mom's a teacher. She's here today. Give Mom some applause. And our teachers work so hard. They deserve better. They deserve fair wages in the state, and that is not the case. Dad served in the Army. His work took us around the world, but back here in Alabama, I excelled in school. Graduated from Alabama School of Fine Arts, went on to University of Alabama, graduated, and like many of us, couldn't find work. So I ended up in New York City, and that's where I built a career in corporate supply chain, bringing people together, solving global, complex problems in a nonpartisan way. But I found my passion in service, serving our community. I started working in community-based organizations like the Bronx Community Pride Center, advocating for our unhoused youth, fighting the HIV epidemic in the South Bronx. I got into public health, fighting the opioid crisis as a leader of the National Harm Reduction Coalition. Came back to Alabama, did the same thing, started driving for Meals on Wheels, started working with the Humane Society, caring for our animals. I won my first elected office, y'all, HOA president. This matters. You've heard politics is local, right? Politics is local. Wayne actually knows my building very well. It's a large development in downtown Birmingham.
They did it.
All right, yeah, he's one of our best customers. It's a large development of commercial and residential properties. And in that experience, I've had to work with the Department of Buildings, build relationships with the mayor's office, the city council, get things done for my community. My decision to run this cycle was born out of a wrongful arrest that happened on a drive in Michigan. I was tortured by the state police in Michigan, driver's license confiscated, and then got the body and dash cam and learned those troopers were trying to plant drugs in my car. It became a national news story, and I have never gotten justice from that day. But what I've learned is that the system is broken, and it's not just the criminal justice system, it is education, it's healthcare, it's economic opportunity. And if you look at the fans that I handed out a little bit earlier, that is what I'm committed to resolving and fighting for every single day in the United States Congress. We've got to start investing in ourselves now. We have not done so for a generation. It is well past time. I'm ready to fight for you. My name is Dakarai Larriett, candidate for United States Senate. And I thank you so much for having us here today.
Good afternoon. There we go. Thank you. So for those of you that I have not had the opportunity to speak to before, my name is Mark Wheeler II, and I am your favorite candidate for United States Senate, right? So my story is a little different to everyone else on the stage tonight. I grew up over in Heflin, Alabama, so that is about 60 miles east of here, right next to the Georgia state line. When I was about 3 months old, my father went to prison for murder. When I was about 5, my mother remarried. And then when I was 11, that man went to prison for murder. and then not long after that, my mother went to prison for drug abuse and has been in and out ever since. And so that's been the story of my life, right? Violence, drug addiction, not really an easy path forward, not a great shining example in my life to show me what a person really is supposed to be. How do you participate in community? How do you become a functional member of society, right? These things weren't laid out for me. I had to figure that out on my own. But I did. So I worked my way through high school, graduated, went to work in a factory, Atlantic Tool and Die over in Anniston, Alabama. This is before it shut down. And I found out real quick that working life is not for working people. Life in America is not for working people, I'm sorry. They told me right off the rip that we were going to work 60, 72, 84-hour weeks. And I said, how is that reasonable? They said, we're going to get paid overtime. I said, oh, well, I guess that makes it okay, right? I'm young, I'm dumb, I didn't know better. And so I'm working these overtime shifts in this factory, and we come up on our first holiday. And I go to my supervisor and I say, hey, what's the plan for this? When are we going to shut down? When do we come back? How does this work? He said, our plan is for you to come in and work, Mark. What? Come in and work, man, it's a holiday. We've got to spend time with our family. No, you don't. He said, the only thing you need to be worried about is being here, doing your job, or losing your job. And I said, Josh, that's just not fair. And he said, man, that's the way of it. He said, I have to come in or I'll get fired. You've got to be here too. Okay. So I jumped through a couple of factory jobs and I finally ended up at my current employer, which is a wire and cable company. And they offered a tuition reimbursement program. They said, hey, if you go to school, you make good grades, we will pay for your college. I said, hey, this is wonderful. I could make something of myself. I said, cool, how do I sign up? They said, we'll come back in a year. A year? They said, yeah, you have to work a year before you qualify. Great. So I put my nose to the grindstone. I start working this year, 60, 72, 84-hour weeks. The same old story, right? Overtime never ending. The end of this year, I go back to my HR representative and I said, hey, it's been a year, I'm ready. Oh, sorry, Mark, we just changed the policy. You have to work 2 years. What? How is that fair? It's the way up. Okay, fine. So I did it, put my nose to the grindstone, and I worked another year, still doing this overtime. And I go back to my HR representative and I said, hey, I'm ready. They said, great, fill out this paperwork. I fill it out. 6 months later, I get a letter back from the HR rep. I moved to a different plant, but still with the same company. And it says, congratulations, Mark. You're going to get to do it. We're going to award you the tuition reimbursement program. You're going to get to go to college. Great. How do I get time off to go to class? Ooh, you don't. Oh. What? So you're telling me if I make good grades, you're going to pay for me to go to school? Yes. but you're not going to give me time off work to go to school, to study, to make good grades. No, you have to figure that out on your own. And that story, ladies and gentlemen, is the way of it for most American people. Most young people in modern day America are not given functional opportunities. If you don't come from a family that can afford to pay for you to go to school, if you don't come from a family that can afford to give you a place to live while you study, even if you do get something like the Pell Grant, you don't get to go. There is such a thing as being too poor to get a job. There is such a thing to be, there's such a thing as being too poor to actually go to school. And that was my struggle. So while being married, while raising a family, having bought a home, all these years of working this overtime, 7 years it took me to accomplish a bachelor's degree in chemistry and emergency management from Jacksonville State University, but I did it. The first person in my family to graduate high school, the first person in my family to graduate college. One of the proudest moments of my life outside of having children. And so after 7 years, I finally walked across that stage and I said, I've done it. And so January of last year, I'm sitting in my office at home and I'm looking through things and I start thinking about the community around me. I think about the kids that I went to high school with that did not succeed in the way that I did. I thought about all of the lucky breaks that I got that just happened to make it work. I thought about how hard it was. And how unfortunate it is for everyone else around me that did not get to make it. And so that is why I'm running for office. Because I know what it is to need food stamps and Medicare and Medicaid. I know what it is to struggle. I know what it is to not have and have to fight with everything you have to try to make something of yourself. And life in America should not be that hard. Thank you.
All right. All right, y'all see the quality of these four folks, and like I said, I've been out with them, but I want everybody to do something for me now. Everyone, you've been sitting here for about an hour. You need to stand up. Everybody needs to stand up and stretch your back a little bit before we start asking our questions.
I think that was recorded.
But I'll give folks as long as y'all need to answer these questions, and I do want to say, if someone who's not asked one of the four questions that I'm asking, if you would like to follow up with a comment, we'll give you short time, a minute or two to respond. But I'm going to do this one in alphabetical order. So Dakarai, you will get the first question. So Dakarai, the thing I've heard, so their theme is justice, theme of the night is justice. And Dakarai's theme specifically is what I've heard him speak most passionately about, and that is social justice. So, Dakarai, what is the social justice cause that you have been involved in your life that is most near and dear to your heart? And as a follow-up to that, how would you use your commitment to that cause to make life better for all Alabamians as a senator?
Well, thank you so much for asking, Wayne. Obviously, my wrongful arrest, and I think about the words that are etched in our Supreme Court. What's left of it, right? Equal justice under law. And that is just not the reality. We know that. I think most of us have seen Alabama Solution. We know we have a broken criminal justice system. And what I wanted to do was take from my situation and make the world better for everyone and prevent wrongful arrest in the future. And that is why I put together what I call the Motorist Bill of Rights. And what it does is protect all of us in our interactions with law enforcement. And it's really about transparency. In my situation, there was no probable cause for my stop. So I want to ensure that all stops have a legally defined reason that we agree upon federally, because at the time I lived in Alabama. This incident happened in Michigan. Number two, when that altercation or stop happens, let's make sure that all of the tests are scientific and objective, not fishing expeditions just to gather evidence.
Yep. And
then finally, the release of information. So we've seen in our community right here in Homewood with Jabari Peoples, which is a matter that I protested against. Law enforcement withholds the video. It causes unnecessary pain for the family, unnecessary pain for the community, doubts about law enforcement. We've got to release that information contemporaneously to a neutral third-party cloud so that the families and the public defenders and lawyers can access it and ascertain what happened and put the matter to rest. So that's the Motorist Bill of Rights. It is on my website. You can learn more about it there, and I've also spoken about it at the Alabama State House. Thanks for asking.
Would any of you other gentlemen like to make a follow-up comment on that? Yes, go ahead and applaud. Yes, good job. Well done. Anyone here want to make a follow-up comment on what Dakarai said? You don't have to? All right. So, Kyle, you're next. Obviously, you talked about it in your speech just a minute ago. The thing I've heard you speak most passionately about is economic justice. So what I want you to tell the crowd is, what is the most egregious effect that you've seen on Alabamians on the tariff policy that is being pursued right now by this administration? And what would you do to prevent those egregious effects of tariffs as a senator in the United States Senate?
Thank you. So, as I said earlier, tariffs are regressive taxes, if you're not aware. If you look at Alabama and our poverty rate, and also at our sales tax rate, which is a regressive tax, it means that it's a tax that you pay a higher percentage of your income, if you're lower income, on that. So with tariffs, it acts like the same thing. For me, I got to see the price of finished steel products, something like a garage door, for instance, a 16x7 garage door went from $300 to $900 before COVID even hit. And what I found interesting about tariffs is really the Trump 1.0 and the media didn't do any sort of job telling folks or preparing small businesses or preparing the consumers what was about to happen. So back from just the tariffs in 2018, which we now have a data for that, we lost 75,000 jobs and only gained 1,000 jobs. And what they do is the folks that are shuffling lobbyists up to Washington, D.C., they highlight those 1,000 jobs, and they don't tell you that people are going out of business left and right. So I got to see corporations, a corporation, the day after those steel tariffs hit, the 25% went up 40% on price overnight. Wow. And with that, you learn, wow, they're taking product they already had. How long have they had this product? In many cases, in their case, a year to 2 years, block buys. So they take these tariffs, and these large companies in some ways are benefiting from tariffs. What we're doing, consumers, the people of Alabama, we are paying a tax that is in some cases subsidizing the projects of billionaires. It is on our backs, and they're hiding it, and they're lying about it. So I want to make sure that we have a voice in Washington, D.C. by having the debates that we're supposed to have, where we go back down to the state, we talk to the people of the state, we talk to the businesses of the state, the experts here, and we find out what's going to be the damage of these tariffs and bring that debate to Washington, D.C. And I'm not going to bow down to the executive branch. Clearly, the executive branch, through these tariffs, is holding our entire economy hostage. One man is holding our entire economy hostage and shaping our economic future. And that has to change. And I will make sure that I bring a fiery voice for the people of Alabama to Washington, D.C.
All right. You want to make a follow-up comment to that? Okay, Dakarai, go ahead.
So we're under economic assault from many different angles. The war in Iran, the illegal war, which was enacted without congressional consent or advisement, that's a tax, $4 gas, right? The tariffs themselves. Recently was down in Prattville, Watauga County with my cousins. They are cattle farmers, believe it or not. And they were just going over the cost of beef, right? So this is gonna hit our tables. This is real. We've got to have an engaged legislative branch that's having a very strong debate about these matters before they are enacted, because this is not working.
Okay, very good. All right. Good job. Everett, you're next. All right. You've been practicing law a long time. So we're going to talk to you about legal justice. So we talked about social justice. We talked about economic justice. I'm going to talk to you just about the legal justice system. So Everett, can you describe for us like the one case or the one matter that you can think of in your career that most exemplifies your commitment to justice for all, and talk about how you would use that experience in the United States Senate to make you a more effective senator.
First of all, let me say that I mentioned earlier I was in the computer IT position, and I looked up to heaven and I asked, is this it? Is this what my life is? Programming computers, zeros and ones. And when I worked on my MBA, I had a business law class, and that kind of piqued my interest in the field of law. And then I moved to Birmingham and started watching the news, and I looked around and I saw a lot of defendants that looked like me, but most of the lawyers look like you. And I wanted to make a difference in life. And I went back to law school, finished law school, and I became a lawyer because I wanted to help people, and I wanted people to have a fair chance. I thought I was smart enough to understand the law and know the law, and to help individuals who were less fortunate and who found themselves in trouble. And over the 26 years, I've done that. I tell you, I've been a judge, prosecutor, public defender. One case that comes to mind is James Kincaid Heath. It was a federal case where the probation office directed him to do certain things, and they were going to revoke his supervised release. I appealed that court to Atlanta, the 11th Circuit. Judge ruled against me in the district court, in the trial court. And the 11th Circuit says, this has never come up in our circuit before. Never come up. But Wess is right. The probation office filed a petition for him to be revoked, but judges have judicial authority, Article 3 authority, pursuant to the Constitution. Not a probation officer, not a doctor, not a lawyer, not a counselor. Judges do. So that was one case, and that was back in 2004. I was probably a lawyer 4 or 5 years, and I'm like, wow. I'm doing what I set out to do. But again, I've helped individuals on Fourth Amendment right issues who were illegally arrested or wrongfully arrested, like Larriett. I did something about it. I have the experience, and the courts have ruled in my favor and has suppressed evidence. I've tried about 30 I had about 30 capital defendants. All of them didn't go to trial, but there's only one on death row out of 30, which I think is pretty good. I am pro-life. So those are just some of the things I've done. That is why I entered this field. I believe I understand the Constitution. I know we have issues with co-equal branches of government. I believe that I'm the candidate that best represents the Democratic Party for this particular position. Right now we have Attorney Terry Sewell and Attorney Shamari Moore. Figures, I'm sorry. Attorney Shamari Figures. And I think Attorney Everett Wess would give Alabama the dream team of Democratic lawmakers representing the people of Alabama. I've already represented people in the court systems. Now I want to represent you as your next United States Senator. Thank you so much.
All right, yeah, Jennifer just reminded me, 7:30, not 8 o'clock, is that right? I thought it said 8 o'clock, that's my bad.
As
All
far
right,
as our
so
the
when the forum's gonna end, okay, there you
The
go.
forum runs from 6 to 7:30.
There you go. Does anybody want to follow up on what Wes, whatever you said? Okay, all right, so, sorry, Mark, last question from me. And we talked about social justice, economic justice, legal justice. We're gonna talk, because I've heard Mark speak very passionately on the campaign trail about environmental justice. So, Mark, can you tell us, in your perception, what is the one biggest environmental justice issue facing the state of Alabama today? And what you would do as a senator to try to solve that issue?
That's a really good question. So environmental justice can go a lot of different ways, and there are a lot of concerns that need to be addressed with environmental justice. So I'm the youngest person on the stage, actually, sitting here thinking about it. So I was gonna say, looking towards the future, when you think about environmental justice, you think about clean water, clean air, clean environment for your children to thrive in, right? But not just our children 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now, but also right now. You have to think about all of the things that are going on around us in the world that are continually trying to pollute our environment. You have to think about AI data centers. And I'm not a super anti-AI guy. I think ethical AI is going to be an inevitable future. But it has to be done ethically, right? So we have to be preventing microplastics from escaping into our water system. We have to make sure that we are protecting that clean water so that we have clean water to drink, right? Because as all of you know, without water we die, right? Without water, your cattle will die. Your crops will not grow, right? We will enter a period of horrific famine without clean water. The same thing goes for air. If you have unregulated, relentless release of poisonous gas from factories, so say coal plants or some other petroleum burning facility, you're not going to have clean air. That will kill your plants, that will kill your animals, and ultimately it will make you sick. If any of you have seen the movie Deepwater, it's about, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, so it talks about Teflon and the molecule inside of the Teflon hydrocarbon sequence that was released into the groundwater, right? Teflon knew for years and years and years and years that this molecule was causing deformities in women that were pregnant. It was causing deformities in the children that were born, right? And so you have all these children born with these horrific conditions, right? Spina bifida, all kinds of deformities to their face, health, long-term health issues, cancer, all kinds of stuff. Anyways, all of this is a result of unregulated capitalism. Endless dumping of poisonous Teflon into the groundwater, right? They're going out to these people's farms, they're leasing out hundreds of acres, they're digging it out and dumping scrap Teflon into the ground. It escapes and seeps through the water as it rains, goes down into the groundwater supply. People are pumping it up and drinking it every day. They're taking showers with it. And so hundreds of billions of dollars in health damage to the community around them. And that is just that one instance. That doesn't talk about every other chemical manufacturer in the United States. That doesn't talk about the steel industry when they have byproducts from their materials, right? Power plants, coal ash, all this other stuff. Environmental protections are absolutely paramount to a healthy society. It's paramount to make sure that you and your children and your grandchildren are healthy and continue to be healthy. Because it is so much easier and so much cheaper to take care of it now before it negatively affects you. And as your United States Senator, I've got a lot of things that I want to cover. There's so much low-hanging fruit. But one of the biggest things that we have to pay attention to is making sure that our environment stays clean, and that it stays safe, and that it stays ready for the next generation to grow and thrive.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Another one follow up on that quicker, or okay? So that's it for my questions. So now, oh wait, Everett, you say you want to say something? Come on. Go ahead. There you go.
Yeah,
Yes.
just on the environment, just real quickly, a lot of things that people are concerned about right now are these data centers and solar panels that are going on in South Alabama. As your United States Senator, I would look at these things and make sure that we are doing things that are good for the people of Alabama. And we would look and scrutinize and make sure that we're not destroying the environment, make sure we're not destroying our wetlands in South Alabama. I promise you, I will look at these issues and try to curb some of these things that are coming into our communities and protect you from these data centers and solar panels that they're trying to put into our environment and destroy Alabama as we know it.
Very good. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, go ahead. You go.
Thank you, made me think of something.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, that's good.
So yesterday I spent the afternoon with the unions talking about the data centers, which have become a flashpoint. And one of the key roles that I want to play in the Senate is someone that can bring folks together and find common ground. We should be trying to solve problems, make deals. The goal every single day should be, how do we make a deal for you, right? We're never going to get everything that we want. So the perspective from the unions is, these are good, high-paying construction jobs, right, that are coming into our community. And I said, great, But now we have to sit and talk with the environmentalists and make sure that these data centers are neutral to the environment, they're not over-consuming water, not over-consuming power and adding to our electricity bills. So that's the role that I want to play, is frankly as a mediator in the Senate, and ensuring that all the legislation comes through works for you, not just the businesses.
All right, good. All right. Daggum Alabama Power, let us help put solar panels on our roofs. We wouldn't have to worry about those out of Alabama County, would we? So, and by the way, I used the AI to do a grant application today. That's gonna work, man. Dang, I'm not, data centers are always great, but dang, AI, really good. So it helped me a whole lot. So anybody disagree? I mean, if you've used AI, it's pretty good, right? I mean. So, okay, so I'm going to give everybody an opportunity now. So if anyone has a question, just raise your hand. And all right here, Alan Thomas has got a question.
So
stand up so we hear you better, Alan.
So to follow up on the questions of justice, what do each of you think you could do to reform civil asset forfeiture nationwide?
Here we go. We'll pass it down. We'll just pass it down this way first try. Okay.
So for those of you that don't know, civil asset forfeiture is basically you're driving down the road, you get pulled over, you have too much cash on you, and an officer thinks that that's suspicious and they seize it. That is civil asset forfeiture. I think it's criminal, absolutely criminal, and from a federal level it should be banned. So there's a lot of different ways that we could go about doing that, but I personally simply think just saying that you have a large sum of money definitely automatically equates to drug trafficking, therefore you are a criminal, you lose this money, is wrong. There are some instances where police departments are seizing money and then some of it disappears out of evidence. There are some instances where it gets turned over to federal agencies and then the money never returns back to the person. But the worst instances that I've heard of is people that will call in about it, they try to make a big deal, and they will be offered to settle. We will give you a percentage of the money back if you just sign it away and say you have no claim to the rest of it. How does that make sense? The federal government and your state government should not be worked and leveraged in a way that absolutely disadvantages you. They use our tax dollars, they should be representing us, not representing their own self-interest. But ultimately that's what ends up happening. You end up in a system where, like I said, you have this money. Maybe you just retired and you cashed out your pension. Or that happens. Or maybe you just sold your boat and you're on your way back home with cash. And a cop pulls you over and he says, oh, this looks like too much money, I'm gonna take it with me. You try to argue with him, you try to fight with him, you end up in a situation like Dakarai. You get the devil beat out of you and then you don't get any of your money back. You're arrested for resisting arrest. I mean, the situation can compound so quickly and so severely, and you have so little recourse. And the government doesn't have an incentive to protect you at this point because you are a single person with a whole lot of money and they want it so they can spend it on more guns, on more military vehicles for our police departments, and they shouldn't be militarized. Anyways, I'm getting on a rabbit hole. Anyways, I say all that to say that it should be federally banned, and we should not be allowing it to happen.
Very good. All right, Dakarai.
Thanks for the question, Alan. So short answer, I've already written the legislation. It's about transparency. So basically bullet number 3, there will be contemporaneous video evidence, audio evidence of the interaction, the confiscation, and then ultimately the individual will have that documentation to get it back.
Okay. Well, Kyle.
So right now, I think most criminal activity is actually going through crypto. You even have people like Vladimir Putin who have been reportedly funding terrorism in places, it funded Hamas in a way at the tune of $8 million. So with that, I do think we should review civil asset forfeiture, but I think that the big thing to look at here, if we actually want to look at criminal activity, is crypto, and so we need to keep on the target. And so with that crypto, if you look at Donald Trump and what Donald Trump has done with crypto, I think 2 days after he was sworn in, millions of dollars went to his pump and dump scheme.
Yep. I think Mark Garfinkel invested most of his retirement in Trump coin, right, Mark?
And you look at a lot of that happened.
I got in early and I got out even earlier. Time travel was my friend.
A lot of that came from Chinese exchanges.
Yeah, lost 96% of its value in 1 year.
So, yeah, I would support banning it, potentially taking a look at banning that. But I really do think that we need to make sure, I don't know if we're gonna get the crypto question, but I think it's very important that we really hammer down on crypto and we start to regulate crypto. That way we can stop some of this criminal activity that's happening, even from the president. If it's not criminal yet, we need to make it criminal.
Good point. Everett?
I've had these cases where you have a gun, you have drugs, and you just cash your IRS tax refund. Police stops you, and he takes $4,000. And the problem is, in the law, the standard is low. It's lower than the probable cause standard. That's a very low standard, but it's reasonable suspicion standard to take your money. Incident to an arrest or a police stop. So what do we need to do? We need to raise the standard. I think it goes back to the 4th Amendment, search and seizure, federally. We go back and make a higher standard, not this reasonable suspicion standard, not probable cause, maybe clear and convincing. Beyond a reasonable doubt is what we use in criminal offenses. But we raise the standard federally in Congress, making laws and make it harder for police to take people's money. And now they're trying to take your houses if they think it's a drug house, or they're taking your car if they think you're transporting drugs in a particular car. But we just need to raise the standard from that low standard in the law to a higher standard. And that's the real answer to this question. Thank you.
All right. Ever give the mic to Kyle, because he's going to go first on this next question. So we have time for 2 more questions. Somebody else, there we go, right there. That's 1 and 2, so there we go.
So I'm a federal employee. I'm also an officer in my local union. And as everyone probably knows, the federal workforce has been under attack in this administration. Be it DOJ, be it illegal firings, be it canceling collective bargaining agreements. And so that has led to a significant impact on our work. Nobody goes into public service to make money. Not maybe the president does, but real public service. Those of us that could go in the private sector and make a lot more money, but we choose to work and serve the people of our state and our community. But I can just tell you, this administration has made it so much more difficult for us just to do our jobs every day, to help the people that we want to help. This is why we do what we do, is to help people, and this administration has made it more difficult for us as federal employees to do that. Not only that, but morale is at an all-time low in the federal workforce. I mean, Russell Vought, right, the head of OMB, said he wanted to inflict, quote, trauma on federal employees. That was the word he used, because we're just a bunch of overpaid paper pushers that sit around. But there are people that depend on us. The people that process your Social Security, the people that process your Medicaid, the people that make sure you have clean air and clean water,
Right.
the OSHA inspectors that make sure that your workplace is safe.
Yep.
Those are federal employees.
Right.
And so my question is.
There you go, your question.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
What's your question,
My
sir?
question is, if you all are elected to the U.S. Senate, what are you going to do to fight for federal employees, to fight for public workers?
There you go. Okay, Kyle, you're first, and we'll go to Everett and then down this way.
Well, thank you, and thanks for everything you do. I know it definitely has to be tough being in the crosshairs of all these folks like Elon Musk, villainizing you, using their platforms, using their social media platforms. I think it's very important that we have Democrats that stand loud and proud for unions like the AFGE, and we let the people of Alabama know how important it is that we have unions like the AFGE that are fighting for working people, that are fighting for federal employees, and how important those employees are. If you look at what happened at the beginning of the Trump administration with the air traffic controllers and the plane crashes that were happening over and over and over again, right after Trump was elected. We need to make sure that we protect our professional public workers that are doing it for more than money. They're doing it for the people. And so I trust you, and I hope that you will trust me to have your back in the U.S. Senate, fighting for unions, fighting for working people, and fighting for the AFGE.
All right. Everett.
Again, I was an employee for U.S. Army MICOM at Redstone Arsenal, and then I worked for contractors, TRW, which is now Northrop Grumman, and also New Technology Incorporated. Federal funding funds these positions. Whether you are a VA medical provider, whether you work on NASA contracts, Army contracts, with the USDA, this is federal funding. What MAGA said is, we don't want federal funding for SNAP and WIC and people who are living in public housing. And then those came in and they began to cut SNAP and WIC and people who receive federal funds for public housing and people who receive federal funds to get an education. But when they began to cut federal positions, the MAGAs at Redstone Arsenal said, whoa, you've gone too far. And I said, wait a minute. Your job is funded by the government. And you wanted the government to cut funding. Yeah, but we didn't want him to do this. So now I think even some of the MAGAs are understanding the impact of federal funding not being protected. And I understand it because I work in that force. I work for the government. So as your United States Senator, I will make sure that we provide federal funding as a U.S. Senator. I will provide the oversight that the Constitution directs us to do and make sure that we have federal funding for our providers who help us in healthcare, for the providers in the veteran hospitals, and I will make sure that we have funding for those who are not as fortunate as some of us, those who need SNAP, who needs good food, who needs clean water. I will make sure that we get back to what our founding fathers wanted us to have, co-equal branches of government. Benjamin Franklin said in about 1787 or so, after the Constitutional Convention, you have a republic if you can keep it. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to you today, you have a republic if you can keep it. This representative government of the people. And I promise you, I will do that as your next United States Senator. Thank you so much.
So this is an interesting question, and it is something I actually have a plan for, remarkably. So I heard a statement a while back that said the difference between a Republican and a Democrat is that a Republican only cares about something when it directly impacts them, whereas a Democrat will care about things that impact the people around them. And so I say that to say, I didn't have to be a federal employee to recognize that you still need a paycheck, that you have a family to provide for, right? I don't have to be in your shoes and your circumstances to understand that something that hurts you is hurting you. You're still a person, right? And so my thoughts on this, my plan to fix this as an issue is to tie federal employee pay to congressional pay. So that if the members of Congress are still getting their paycheck, you're still getting your paycheck. Because you're expected to go to work regardless, right? They want you to furlough, but they're still getting their damn paycheck. That doesn't make any sense. So when we tie your pay to their pay, and then we make stock trading a criminal offense for members of Congress, so they go to jail if they try to trade stocks, they won't have a choice but to pass a budget to make sure that everyone continues to get paid. So we take away their stock trading, we tie your pay to theirs, and we make sure that you are taken care of long term. Thank you.
All right. It's been a while, so I'll just reiterate what I understood is how do we care for our federal workers?
Yep.
And the simple answer, the elegant answer is stop electing Republicans. So seriously, we look at the length of shutdowns They're always longer under Republicans.
Yep.
Trump breaks a record every shutdown. And we didn't even get a lot of press around this, but we just ended the DHS shutdown today. 42 days, guys. 42 days. So what falls under DHS? I have friends in FEMA. They've been sitting at home. And the really sad part about it is they will ultimately get their money, but we lost the services as clients, as customers, as citizens. So there are a couple different things I want to do in this space. It starts with legislation. Making shutdowns more realistic and practical for America. We don't really want to do that, but sometimes it's going to happen. So we have to determine what is a crucial service that must continue. And I don't think enough services are considered crucial services, and then that means those individuals are sent home. We also have to improve the incentives for avoiding shutdowns. So I disagree. I don't think anyone in Congress, frankly, a millionaire doesn't care about $174,000 a year. Doesn't matter. But re-election matters. So if you're not passing a budget, which is your number one goal, that's your Article 1 power of the purse, you're not passing budgets on time, I could see that being a reason that you're no longer eligible to run for the office again. So things like that, we've got to get creative with legislation to force people to solve problems. And then finally, partnering with the union. So we're also in discussion right now with the Government Workers Union. So really just digesting all of their issues, ensuring that they have the ability to unionize, that we're representing their values, ensuring that they're cared for.
Okay. So this is probably our last question. We might have time for one more if you're really, really good, but go ahead.
Hi, I wrote it down.
Good, thank you.
My name is Lauren. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Alabama. I also have a master's in women's studies and teach women's studies at that same university. I went to Auburn first though, so don't say
We don't judge.
Yeah, okay. But you should. We already know that. All right, so of course, if we're talking about justice, women are going to be on the forefront of how I think about that.
Yep.
And I can't help but notice that none of you are. Or go
That's
ahead.
Guilty.
But that does mean that I want to hear how you think about your constituents that are not like you. So as you hopefully know, women's health in Alabama is underfunded, it's under-researched, and it's underserved.
Yep.
How will you lobby on behalf of women for their bodily autonomy, whatever that might mean for you, in healthcare, and ensure that research and funds are devoted to women's health both in DC and in the state?
We're going to go back to our first order where everyone's had turn, so we're going to go back to our original order. Everyone, you just pass it down towards me.
All right. This goes back to those cuts. They cut funding at UAB and universities and hospitals and hospitals that do medical research and do research on women's health issues. You know, again, I will make sure as your next U.S. Senator that we provide funds to make sure that women's health is taken care of. And I will conduct the oversight as is contemplated in the U.S. Constitution to make sure that those funds are utilized for the things that we allocated the funds for. So yeah, we need hospitals, women care in hospitals and health, and I think that doctors and the women should be making the decisions concerning what's right for them and their health, not these politicians. So I'm a proponent of legislation for politicians to get out of the lives of women, and we'll work toward putting together legislation for that purpose. Thank you.
So if you look at Alabama and you look at our infant mortality rates, we have one of the highest infant mortality rates in the nation. I want to work as best as possible on the federal level to help alleviate that issue. Another problem that we have here is that we're a one-party Republican-ruled state. And so what I can do on the federal level is defend your constitutional right to cross the border to another state and get the care you need. And I know a lot of people don't talk about that, but first we got to win up and down the ballot to make changes within the state. But on the federal level, I will fight like hell to defend women and to make sure the government doesn't track you across state lines like cattle the way these MAGA Republicans want to do. And to Everett Wess, to his point, we need to make sure that we expand health care in the state of Alabama. You look at rural hospitals and how many of those rural hospitals have closed or under threat of closing. That's a big deal. So making sure that women don't have to drive 2 hours is very important.
There's several parts to your question, so you're correct, I identify as a man, so. But no, honestly, it starts from a place of listening. And when I started my campaign, I said, we need leaders who listen. So I spent 20 years in corporate America fighting for DEI, building diverse teams. So I am advised by some brilliant, brilliant women, and that informs how I approach different challenges where I may not have the personal knowledge. Now, in terms of fighting for women, their access to health care, addressing our horrible mortality rate, #1 for Black women, #3 maternal death rate for women overall, it's unacceptable. And I knew this was coming and it was gonna get worse. So when the Big Beautiful Bill debate started, I jumped on a plane, I went to Washington last summer and protested right alongside Representative Waters. And I stood right on the Capitol grounds and said no to the Big Beautiful Bill. And what has it done? It has changed the cost sharing rules to the point where we're gonna have a $300 million gap in our budget. We're gonna have more hospitals closing. So legislatively, we've got to fight to repeal this bill. It is really going to come into full effect next year, so we have some time. I'll be taking the oath of office in January, and we've gotta fight for healthcare. Remember I almost said the last shutdown, maybe 3 shutdowns ago? We shut down because of the ACA subsidies, guys. We still have not taken the vote in the Senate. It is unacceptable. We've got to make healthcare affordable. That's step 1. But then we've also got to move forward with a public option. So I have some experience in the healthcare space. That is another project that I want to roll out. It's not going to happen overnight, but we've got to create the step plan to give access to healthcare and take care of our women.
All right.
So women's health is very important and near and dear to my heart. But show of hands, how many of you know what surrogacy is? Okay, sweet, most of the room. So if you guys don't already know, my wife is a 2X surrogate to a beautiful gay couple in New York City. Wow. Wonderful people, some of the most wonderful, nicest, beautiful people that I've ever met. And anyways, I say that to say that women's health, we talk about women's health often as abortion, and I presume that's where you're expecting the answer to lead, yes?
I said it in the way that how do you think of bodily autonomy,
I
so
see.
you have the range to think about that.
There you go.
Fair. There's a lot of topics to cover in that realm then. The hot topic most people talk about and consider with women's health is abortion. My short, simple answer there is that we should codify Roe v. Wade into law at a federal level. There's no exception there. That needs to happen. But it doesn't just stop there. More than half of this room is women. Each and every one of you know that you have a mind of your own. You should be able to make decisions for your own body without any man having an input into that, myself included. Just because I'm an elected leader or trying to become an elected leader does not give me some magical authority to tell you how you should be living your life. At least I don't think so, and I don't think anyone else on this stage has the right to tell you that. So if you feel like you need health care, I think you deserve to have it in whatever way that needs to happen. It's a discussion for you and your doctor of choice, and that's it. So I say all that to say that we can make that happen. We can codify regulations into law to make sure that you are guaranteed every right that man is, that your healthcare is not more regulated than a gun, and that you can make these decisions for yourself without anyone else's input. So expanding from that a little bit, that means we need to talk about funding women's health projects more, making sure that women understand their body. At an early age, we're talking about grade school, right? Because sex education in Alabama, in most instances, is a abstinence-only education. That's how we end up with teen pregnancies. And it seems that is the expectation from the Republican Party. They want more teen pregnancies. They want more people born into poverty so that they can put a heavier thumb on the working class. Anyways, I'll sit here and jabber all night, but thank you so very much for the question.
All right. Okay, so that concludes our forum for the night. Can everyone express their appreciation for these representatives? Thank you so much. I want to mention that you guys can go ahead and take your seats down there and talk to the people. I want to say two quick things before I turn it back over to Jennifer, and that is there's a number of things happening this coming Monday night. My friend Mark Garfagel said earlier today, I wish I could split myself into 4 different directions on Monday night. So you could go with Brian Huff to BAO Bingo Monday night if you wanted to, which is lots of fun. Or you can go to Doug Jones's birthday party at Sidewalk Film Festival. You have to buy a ticket to go to that. Or you can come and hear Cory Booker speak. If you'd like to hear Cory Booker, come and let me know. He's going to be in town. Y'all may remember that Cory Booker was supposed to be here back in the fall, and he wasn't able to come, so he's going to be here Monday night at 6:30. If anyone wants to come hear him speak, and that's the only 3 I know about, but I'm sure there are at least 2 more, right, Mark? So, but I just want to make sure that everybody knew about those different things that are happening. So y'all express your appreciation to these guys one more time, and I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.